Welcome to Sons of Sand Hill. Marcus May and my bro, Nathan May.
What's up, brother?
Hey, just, celebrating Easter.
Yeah.
How about you?
Um, Sort of doing the same, We didn't have much of one today. Friends invited us to church for they actually had a brunch going on, and the baby really didn't sleep at all much last night, so when I woke up this morning I could tell that wasn't even a question to ask.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, I feel you.
yeah.
You kind of know those days like when they start.
Yeah. He
You
was
know
she was
pretty quick.
breastfeeding last night, and she definitely grew from yesterday to today significantly. So, part of it.
Part of it, man. Yeah, no, we actually went to church. Very interesting. It's been a minute, and Marshall was, yeah, that was fun. We did not put him in childcare, so he was jumping all over the place and
But
poking people and stealing kids' pacifiers.
oh my god. Like, you're just out in the congregation and he's doing
Yeah, 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 yeah.
this. Mayhem.
It was. But he's also got to learn to like chill. You know what I mean? Like he's
Well,
so used to if we go do something, he has a phone or something to keep him quiet. So he needs to learn to occupy himself and just sit still for a little bit. That's part of
right.
life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Yeah.
we grew up that way. We were told you sit down and you don't make a sound, and you
Yeah,
just did it, right?
that's
So I
true.
mean, there's still a lot of that left in me. So I'm very much like, yeah, you better shut up. Yeah.
I had to do it. You had to do it.
Right,
But
right.
no, that's funny.
It was
Okay.
kind of it was reminiscent in a lot of ways. It was kind of funny. I because a lot of times we've put him in the child care and let him hang out with the other kids, and of course you can sometimes hear him screaming through the whole church. So that's always fun. But this time we took him and yeah, he really didn't know what to do. So that was a learning experience. But yeah, I got on him a few times. I think he got the message. And he actually, I'll be honest, he actually did pretty good when it was all said and done. Just a few little mishaps along the way. So,
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure you didn't have to sit still as long as we would have to if we were
oh
in
no, no,
church.
it was like an hour.
Oh man. More like, I don't know, 4 or 5, the entire thing.
Oh, oh, it was yeah, at least three. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't, I don't think it was minimum three.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Probably an
More.
hour of singing, and
At
then
least.
yeah, yeah.
Because once there was a couple times it was like an hour and a half, hour and 45, uh, when the fire was coming down, right? You didn't interfere with that flow. You kept it going.
I don't remember 2 hour singing sessions, so I must have missed that one. But
I was probably after the instruments disappeared.
oh yeah, yeah, I wasn't around for that one.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you get tired of playing the instruments after so long, so you kind of like a regular concert. You have to shut it down at a certain point.
Yeah. You also get sick of hearing people, sing a cappella for 2 hours too.
So that brings. I had a whole nother topic to go into. We'll get back to it, but that brings a question because I wasn't around for the acapella days. Like, so music just went away, right? Like
Yeah,
the actual instrumentals just went away,
right.
and so you had a lead singer, I guess,
Yes,
and then everyone just followed in suit.
right. I mean, pretty much like one day. it was determined that, instruments were the cause of the music getting a little beady, being able to sway, to tap your foot, to get into, and yeah, like
Be
it was,
happy, right?
yeah. And then boom, that next week it was a cappella from then on. And yeah, I remember that. It was kind of cringe like, right? And he gets up there and starts leading those first notes, and I mean there is nothing but silence, It,
Talking
it
about
felt
putting
so
yourself out
bad.
there.
Yeah,
Oh man.
yeah,
So, you know, and I'll be honest with you. Growing up the way we did, or is very traditional, but in a lot of ways. Um, I love some traditional music, but even in our church growing up, people wrote songs, and there
yeah,
were like songs that no one else knew. They put to music. It was actually good songs. I mean, thought provoking songs, good music, all that stuff. So I've struggled with some of these churches like I've gone to that have like rock and roll bands, and I'm like, well, not so traditional. But then I look back and I'm like, well, at the same time, the way we grew up, I, they wrote their own songs. I mean, I remember like ballads about all kind of stuff that someone literally wrote on their own, and
yeah,
it was a actually good song and actually had good meaning to it. So I've kind of tapered off of that. I guess I enjoy the traditional stuff that everyone knows and just everyone sings along because they know it and they've always known it, kind of thing.
right.
Um, and so I enjoy that, but I couldn't imagine in any scenario, whether it be original, which I can imagine some of these were probably original songs that you just sing to with no music. I mean, that just blows my mind.
Yeah. The thing that I'll say that there was two things that I found the biggest problem was with it was that the Bible mentions multiple instruments and to use them,
Yep.
and you call yourself Bible believing Christians. And then secondly, they kept the piano in place. And the piano was allowed to be used from time to time when he wanted. So it would be like maybe the sermon was on a Sunday ending on a high note, and you felt that energy through the crowd, and everyone was ready to get out and go do their thing. And, he would have someone come up and play the piano for like one song, which I found so hypocritical. I found
Oh
such a
yeah.
problem
I
with.
mean, well, instruments are very much mentioned in the Bible. I mean, talking about uh, trumpets, and
Yeah,
angels play trumpets and harps and all the things that are called out throughout the entire Bible around instruments. I mean, and then what I find very contradicting about this, and I find this very contradicting about any church that says no instruments. Like that's just wrong because I've never understood that. Is the Bible says make a joyful noise
hmm yeah,
because your music's supposed to be happy. Like it's not supposed to be sad and somber and it's supposed to be directed towards God, but it's supposed to be joyful towards God. And it's supposed to be a joyful noise. And if it's not, if you're not happy, you can't make a joyful
yeah,
noise.
yeah.
So I get a little confused around. I think the Amish maybe believe that way as well. That they don't. I don't think they do instruments either.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I'm pretty sure so. And I just don't understand that because if it's allowed in heaven, then why would you not allow it here? I
Yeah.
just don't understand that. And even the drums and everything else, like a beat's a beat. I mean, you can strum a guitar and have a rhythm. Like
Yeah.
rhythm is rhythm, beat's a beat. Like I don't get that whole aspect of that. And so take the drum out. That's fine, but why remove all the instruments? Like I don't
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
No, it rubbed me wrong, really, really wrong at the time. And I use that very same verse, like I question Dad and a couple other leaders, just like, hey, this is not lining up. But, of course, no one's ever going to tell you the decision he made was wrong. And so that never came up. And I mean, and not to keep going too far with this, but eventually it led to the point where we no longer clapped. And because, when the instruments were removed, clapping did fill in a lot of that. People would start the beat with clapping, and kind of break that silence. And then it got where this group within decided that they didn't want to, because they were trying to mimic another church which didn't clap and was also a cappella, that they were trying to essentially impress and liked them. And they would literally, people would start clapping, and you would have like a section of 20, and then it grew to 30 plus people that wouldn't clap. And then after a while, it was like you were just a handful of people clapping if you weren't,
Well, that's awkward.
Yeah, right. And then no one did.
So, I know we've talked about these over the years, but I think it's great to talk about it again on Easter Sunday. It's always interesting to go back to church on Easter Sunday and kind of have comparisons, grow it up and actually like what I feel like is legit, like around Easter. I'm considering that Jesus was resurrected on Easter Sunday and should be celebrated. And it was, really wasn't even a celebration, but it's interesting to see that because, church today, very much celebration around that, a lot of music around that, full band around that, joyous time, like happy time, like this is the reason we're here, type of scenario. And I don't ever remember that. And now hearing all this, because I did leave before some of this happened.
Yeah.
And to see, or not see, but hear that it got that somber is pretty incredible to me.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I mean, it's the whole message around Jesus is like, hey, he came to save you, and he understands you, and you don't have to sacrifice animals anymore. Like you are good because he suffered through everything that you could possibly ever go through. So you should be happy. And what I do remember before I left was it getting very dark. Like just really dark. It just every single Sunday was just darkness, and it wasn't good.
Right.
There wasn't nothing. I mean, you could just feel it, man. It was not anything good around the darkness that was there. So that makes a lot of sense because I felt it then, but I mean, the fact that you couldn't even clap, couldn't play instruments. I mean, I don't even know what to say.
It's interesting because the wife and I have a newer set of friends, and yesterday they were over, and I was kind of opening up to them about some things. And sometimes when you're telling people, it just sounds fucking insane,
Oh yeah,
And,
yeah.
And I'm kind of, I brought up, I'm like, yeah, we didn't celebrate Easter. They're like, whoa, hold up, what? And I'm like, yeah, any pagan holiday essentially, and we didn't. And that you could tell that they didn't even understand that either. Of like, it didn't make, because they sort of kind of understood the Christmas part and whatnot, but and I didn't either. But going back to what I'm saying, when I was telling them, I told them, I said, I remember being young and everyone was happy and doing they were free-willed, expressing themselves how they wanted, and they dressed how they wanted at that time. There was not a dress form or mold. And then just watching that every year, it seemed like got a little darker. Messages were more somber and doomsday and preparation for that, and that paranoia that sets in with it.
and look, I kind of understand it to a certain extent because we're seeing a lot of this come to pass. You know what I mean? Like the world's going to shit, like
Sure.
really quick. And I think that people saw it coming, but kind of like the message today is interesting about this because it's such a contrary of how I grew up and what I heard today is like Jesus was resurrected to conquer fear. Like he doesn't want you to be afraid. And it became almost this fear tactic
Yeah.
around like end of the world's coming, this is coming, like and almost pushing people into conforming around certain things because of fear.
Yeah.
And anything fear related is not of God. I mean, if you really want to break it down, he came to conquer all of these kind of things. And so it was very enlightening to me today to hear that type of message on Easter Sunday when I've heard opposites.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah. And that for me was very interesting because it's true. Like if you really, I don't care if you believe it or not, if you read the story of what Jesus came to do, it's a great message. Like, if you live like Jesus, this world would be a wonderful place. I mean, honestly, like if you really live like him, this
Yeah.
world would be a wonderful place. And so, like, it is. There's no like malicious behavior behind Christianity. What makes Christianity malicious is the people that turn it into a religion.
Yeah. And go off the deep end with it. And then,
Yep.
it always happens. They go off the deep end and they feel, you know, enlightened or impelled to save people, spread the word, you know, and then they start feeling what it feels like to be in power. And then, it grows. And
Well, money plays a lot of part of
yeah,
that.
oh, absolutely. I mean, tax-free money, cash, paper money, yeah,
A
you
hundred
know,
percent.
that's a
100%.
whole, yeah. And I mean,
And 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 it's sad because so many people start off with great intentions, like just trying to spread a good message around Jesus and Christianity in general. And you've seen so many fall because of greed
mhm,
and to your point, power. But I feel like greed and power are kind of the same thing. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like they
oh
go
yeah,
hand in hand. I mean, money and power are essentially the same thing. But it also becomes this controlling thing. I mean, it's very much about the control of like how much you can control people and make them listen to everything you say because you are the vessel that is delivering the message. Well, yeah, it was another interesting. It's really funny to see contrasting messages like today versus growing up, where essentially today they were talking about, hey, look, back in the day there was a temple, right? That's where God resided. He came to the temple. That only certain people could go to the temple. You had to be completely clean, had to wear certain things. Like, I mean, if you passed a certain line, if you went past a curtain, I mean, you could be struck dead. I mean, that was legit stuff. And then when Jesus came and when he basically took the sacrifice for everyone, well, you are now the temple. So there is no more like anything ritual that you have to do anymore. And so, but if you look back, there was a lot of rituals in a lot of ways, a ton of rituals, because at the end of the day, your your version of what you believe in when it comes to Jesus is your version. And who's to tell you otherwise? I mean, really, who's to tell you otherwise? And so it was interesting to see the kind of contrasting messages that I've grown up with versus like this, because it is true. Like he came to do away with that. He literally told him he was going to destroy the temple, and when he died, the temple was breaking essentially. So it's an interesting one for me, and it's always Easter's probably my favorite holiday when it comes to the church in general, because it's such a liberating type of message. And I just still to this day cannot believe that it was never celebrated. I mean, of all, like, there's nothing pagan about it. I mean, the pagans made up turning, use bunnies to create some kind of pagan holiday around it. But when it was all said and done, that is the actual day it happened. Like, the actual day it happened. Like, why would you not celebrate? You can pinpoint that day in the Bible to say this is the day that he rose again every single year. You can't point to his birth, so I get Christmas. You can't, there's a lot of ifs and ands about a lot of other holidays, but this one is very much concrete.
And it's one of those things that makes me wonder. This is just me wondering that was it trying to just be across the board, because if you said you didn't do pagan holidays, and Easter, yes, has been turned into a pagan holiday, then, you'd be contradicting yourself or whatever it was. Because even on that day, there wasn't a special sermon. There wasn't, like that would, okay, sure, him being resurrection would be brought out, in November, December, like random times of the year. It was almost like this against going with the mold of what, the general population of how they celebrated Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. Very valid point. You're right. You're exactly right. That's exactly what happened. And it was like trying to be the opposite.
Yes.
But once again though, like there we grew up so, my wife and me getting, because I'll probably never hold the value to holidays like she does. You know what I mean? Like when you grow up like we do, they just don't mean the same,
Right.
because holidays are very ritual. They are very ritual, certain things you do every single holiday. That's what makes them that, type of monumental event in your life. I mean, I'm more of a 4th of July kind of guy, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, but the Christmas and I like, Thanksgiving's a great one as well, but especially around Christmas. But over the years, I've grown to respect Easter because it does actually mean something to me. And so for me, it actually is a holiday worth celebrating. But yeah, I mean, I just don't see holidays the same. We just didn't celebrate any of them. I mean, there was no rituals every year to kind of get you in that mood. Okay, well, this holiday is coming. This holiday is coming. And, now I'm over here, like, why are you spending $300 on, Easter eggs and baskets? Why are we spending $1,000 on Christmas presents? Like, I mean, you know what I mean? Like now, I mean, I get it now, but it's also, I still don't think I'll ever get it the same way. You know what I mean? And it kind of sucks, but it's part of it, right?
Yes and no, because at the same time, I've seen how people, like, their Christmas is ruined if their small little tradition that they normally do somehow didn't happen or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yep.
not saying that traditions are a bad thing. I think that traditions, like, personally, me now, holidays, I look forward to them because it forces everyone to get together. You kind of take a pause in life. You have to go over there. That part I do enjoy, and I like that aspect of that when you do or when you're raised that way, it's just kind of instilled in you.
Yep.
Um, I mean, we were kind of instilled differently, right? We would just all when we lived around mom and dad, we would just naturally go there all the time and visit, right? Um,
Yep.
because we learned to, I guess, come together for no reason at all, because
Yeah.
it was the right thing to
Yep.
do.
Yep.
And a lot of times, really, I mean, and I do the same thing pretty much. I mean, holidays are definitely like some of the only times sometimes you see family out of the year. Um,
And
but
that's a
kind of
valid
going
point.
off the,
No, that's a valid point. I mean, we found reasons to celebrate each other and family in our own way, which made us a lot more spontaneous.
yeah,
Um, it we don't feel tied down to a certain date that okay, you gotta celebrate mother on Mother's Day, or you gotta celebrate dad on dad. You don't celebrate family on Christmas, or yeah, it was very much around kind of organic type of behavior. Although in reality, if you really think about it, we always went to see grandmother and granddad like the day after a holiday.
yeah. I I was just telling the wife about that, how, honestly, if it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have seen that little slither of normal, if you
Yeah,
would. Like, I remember the time that it was my birthday and we were at Western Sizzlin', of course, in
of
old
course.
Opelika. And she snuck around and told the waitress that it was my birthday, so they come out clapping and singing happy birthday. And, mom and dad, who knows? I think they were just trying to act upset. I don't really know. They're like, "How'd you do that?" And she pretty much didn't give a fuck, just
She did
was
not.
like, whatever. But I'm very thankful, like her
Yes.
just kind of sometimes overstepping dad and doing things, allowed us to see a little bit of normal and how life could actually be to a degree.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But
100%.
yeah, what I always found funny was within the church that the love feast, because we the love feast happened from as far as I remember, right?
Correct. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. They did. Yeah. 100%.
That was always in December, like right around Christmas, like very close. Sometimes even the week of Christmas.
So I don't know if I ever put that together.
Yeah. I always just found it almost contradicting, because I think the last two that I remember were like the week of Christmas. And yeah, I'm pretty sure it was like, the day before or after, it was very, very close.
Interesting. Okay. Well, and that's the thing is like there was a ritual around that. That was a ritual 100%, the love feast and the rituals that came along with it, washing each other's feet. Um,
Sometimes you have to think about some of the shit you did. Like, let's just break it down for the people who don't know. Yeah, it was nothing fancy. We just had some plastic totes,
of
kind of low
water. Yeah.
profile, with some warm water in there, and they sat in the middle of a group of guys that were all circled around, sitting, facing each other, and then behind us would be the women,
Yeah.
segregation. Um, and and then you would grab a tote and go over to a guy in front of him, kneel
Yeah.
down, push it out to his feet, pick one foot up, stick it in, and slosh him. I mean, some guys would, I don't know, who knows? They might have been experimenting. For all I know, I mean, they would really get in there. Um, yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. That kind of creeped me out. You know?
That was a weird one. That was, and it's still to this day, in my opinion, is a weird one because, I think back in the day, like before there were showers, that was like a symbol of appreciation for that person, right? I mean, I think you stooping down and washing their feet when they haven't bathed in a week, right, was a symbol of love. And I think that's where it originated from. The problem is if you don't want to have symbolism and rituals, then you probably should do away with that one.
Yeah.
You know what I
Which,
mean? Because it was all symbolism. It was all symbolism. There was no. You weren't actually cleaning somebody's feet. You know what I mean?
no,
Like, let's be honest here. Like, if they knew that if you knew you were going to a love feast and having a foot washing, you probably really showered hard before you went.
let's hope. Let's just hope. That there could have been people wholeheartedly in that were like,
There could have
from
been.
my
I
prior,
always
I
I
will
always
not
wash
shower.
like dad's feet. Yeah, I always wash like dad's feet.
Yeah,
I didn't really venture outside that circle.
no. I did one time with a dude that had not ever ratted on me or, given me troubles. Seemed pretty genuine. And, he didn't make it awkward. And I appreciated that, but I always stuck with dad because then add in the fact that while they're doing that, they're speaking in tongues. So
Yeah,
you got this guy sloshing water on your feet, speaking in tongues. Like
it was a very awkward situation.
it was very cringeworthy. Like, I mean, just like to put yourself back in that moment. Now you go, oh God, no
Well,
background music, nothing, just oh man.
no Asian women, Oh yeah.
Hang out here. Oh,
And look, I mean, I don't. Yeah, I try to be non-judgmental when it comes to a lot of stuff. I really try to be, but there's just certain things you got to call it for what it is, and that one was just absolutely weird,
yeah,
just weird because it was never instructed that you really do that. That was a symbolism of like saying you aren't above someone. Like what that was essentially, and why it was done in the first place was you're not above that person. You know what I mean? Like you're willing to stoop down and actually clean their feet when they need to be clean. Because like I said, they walked around in sandals for a week and didn't take a shower. You were willing as a human being to stoop down and clean their feet for them, and
oh,
that was more of a symbolism. And so I don't think it carried the same weight when it was translated into the church because yeah, it's just not. I don't think it was the same thing.
yeah.
I just don't. And
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it meant some. Maybe it meant something for somebody, but for me, it was just very, very awkward.
right. It was. I mean, I think in situations like that, sometimes I'm like, that's why you're so awkward. Like, some people don't. I don't think they'll ever understand where I'm coming from because
You
when
know
you
they
do
will
it like
not.
that,
I mean, how many people have actually done that? Like
right?
honestly, let's think. I
Yeah.
mean, how many people have actually done that?
But, it's probably got to be only other religious groups in reality.
Yeah.
I mean, and no
But
one
how many of
randomly.
those actually did it though? I mean, that's my
Yeah.
question. Like, because I've been to a lot of different churches since I left, and they all have communion. That's symbolism, but that was also told like you do this in remembrance of me. Like you got to do this. So it was a symbolism that was actually told to carry on. Um, but I don't, and unless I'm just badly mistaken, I don't think there was anywhere in the Bible that it told you that you needed to wash people's feet to.
No. I think,
Yeah.
in the Old Testament, it was mentioned a couple times, I believe, and essentially a story telling, like you mentioned earlier, that they were, showing kindness. And in
Correct.
today's world, that's now like pulling out a chair for someone. Hey, can I get you something to drink? You still, because we do have running water, and they drove in a car to your place, and they have shoes on,
Yep.
Eh, So,
Yep.
and they took them off because your house is so clean, they can walk around barefooted or in their socks. So I'm with you on that, and that's what happens though when you want to call yourself, Bible believing Christians, you leave it up to your leader to interpret whatever he wants to, and because there were so many things that the Bible mentioned that we didn't do. Yeah, yeah. If we really, I mean, like, yes, I know it's mentioned that you didn't have to sacrifice because Jesus made that sacrifice. But I mean, at the same time, why weren't we sacrificing a lamb in the back, just to make sure, right? But it's only the things that wanted to be interpreted that sounded good to them.
Well, and you're leaving it up to one man's opinion.
Yep.
And the way I interpret the Bible, in my belief, is that it's really your interpretation. Now, I think there's people that are smarter than me that have researched the Bible and have studied the Bible and understand it better than I do. So, will I listen to them? 100%. But at the end of the day, the way it's supposed to work is this is my relationship between Jesus and myself, nobody else.
So,
And I look back and one thing that really disturbs me is there would be people that would come into the church and they would genuinely, you could just tell, genuinely want to learn more about the Bible or genuinely wanted to be like part of a church. And they would get shunned sometimes over the littlest things. I mean, just the littlest things. But we were genuine people. And then the weird ones would come in but they were genuine, but everyone would look at them weird, and everyone would treat them kind of weird, and it was just it was contradicting on so many levels that you had to walk in, look in a certain way, believe in a certain way. No, the whole point of having a church is you get whatever, you bring them all in, and you just tell them the truth and they decide. I mean,
yeah.
that's the point of a church. Like, it's not this controlling type of behavior. And I think that's what happened, is like it was very much this control freak kind of style. And essentially I think it ruined it all, because there were people that really wanted to be a part of it and were genuinely really, really good people,
Mhm.
and they got ruined over this.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought this up because, like, I probably noticed that, like, the amount of judgment and judgmental people within pretty early on, like when I was young. And like I brought it up multiple times to dad. Like, I'm gonna be honest with you. You want to say like everyone outside of this church is evil and they're going to hell and they're wrong, blah blah blah. Some of these people seem to be more compassionate and just kind than some of these people I'm seeing, 2 times a week. And he agreed with me, and that's where I do really appreciate Dad in the
Correct.
fact of, like,
Yep.
even though it was so extreme, he always did tell you the truth. And there was times he told me stuff that if I had told the wrong person, he probably would have gotten a lot of trouble for. But he was honest in the fact of, yeah, no, you're
Very
right.
honest about it.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
and
And he
that
understood like where you were coming from. Like,
right,
you weren't coming from a place of just talking crap. You were coming from a place of genuinely being like, this is wrong. Like, this is just wrong. I'm literally seeing people in this church that judge people, but we have people coming in with genuine intentions and they're getting shunned. And
yeah,
and to your point, and I agree with that. He 100%, and that's why I respect Dad so much at the end of the day, because he, well, I mean, we all know what eventually happened. We're not even go there, but he very much understood the truth about it all. And
Yeah.
I think he felt like it was the best place from a belief perspective in the world. But even at some point, he had his differences.
Yeah. Yeah, and on a kind of a weird comparison, it's almost like, right, you get on board with a president or, official, and you elect them. And then as they're elected, they start saying some crazy shit and wanting to do some crazy shit. But you're kind of already on that train, right? And like, in order to bail, you've got to completely do a 180 and say, no, I don't agree with any of that. This is wrong. I'm walking away. And to do that, I mean, that was life changing.
Yep.
People had
Yep.
dropped their careers that
Yep.
they had gone to college for, or had been successful already in this career, to join.
Yep.
Like, you were already making a life decision to get in.
Yep.
And that's why I
Yep.
feel like at the end of the day, I don't know if Dad knew, like he didn't know where to bail. Like, where do you? There's really no stopping point.
Because back to your original point, there was a time when people were happy.
Yeah.
And there was a time when it was all good and people were there for one common cause, and that was Jesus. And they all were there for Jesus. That literally, you could feel it. You know what I mean? You could absolutely feel it. And then it just changed. It absolutely changed. And I mean, it's hard to describe. And I think, I'd gotten older, so I probably felt it a little more, and maybe even more than you. And maybe, or I don't know, maybe you felt it more than I did because you were younger. Sometimes I think you pick up on that stuff when you're younger. But I mean, it was dark. I mean, there wasn't nothing, there ain't no light about that, man. And, once again, contrasting message I heard today, you look up the times that Jesus has been actually seen in person since he ascended to heaven. He came back with so much light, it like blinded people. I mean, it blinded Saul.
Oh, yeah.
John collapsed to his face when he saw him. He was so powerful and full of light. Moses came back. People couldn't even look at him when he had been around the presence of God because his face was still glowing that much. So why would there ever be a dark feeling? You know what I mean? Like, if we're talking like light and truth and realness, I don't I don't know. There was just a darkness, man. It was just weird. It got really dark.
But that's where the control started, because back
Yeah, I
to
know. You're
your
right. It went
earlier
hand in
point.
hand with that. It
Yeah,
went hand in
because
hand.
uh, you know, I remember when the messages, sermons, whatever, turned to, definitely more doomsday and what's to come, the fear tactic.
Yep.
And I'll never forget, it was like I mean, hey, God, it was like 3.5, 3 hours, 45-minute message. It just fiery, going to hell, what it's like to be burning in hell forever. And I mean, you can just see people get uncomfortable and agitated. Obviously, that was kind of at the start of my rebel days, if you would, and so other people that I was, friends with. And so, like, I knew, like, what we were doing and what they were preaching against and whatnot. And anyway, when this message was done, he invited people down to the front to repent. And I mean, I was shocked at how many people went up. There was people that, like, I would have never even questioned about their walk with God, and they were up there, right? And I remember, I was like, I would never go up there after one of those messages, because you'll never convince me in fear. Like, that rebel side was coming out. Like, why is everyone just conforming and is, following like sheep? And that became more and more common. And then eventually it was added, like, if that kind of sermon had happened and it was long and drawn out and everyone was really, really somber, he would end on that note and say, "Hey, let's not hang around and talk. Let's stay in this somber state and go home and ponder and stay in that state the rest of the day." And I remember I hated those Sundays because you would come home and
I
like,
kind of remember a little bit of that. Yeah.
yeah, dad and
Yeah.
mom wouldn't really talk and everyone's just thinking about like, man, I'm going to hell. Like,
Yeah.
it
No,
was
legit.
dark.
Yeah.
That is fucking dark.
Well, because once again, contrasting the message, he came to conquer fear. I mean,
Right.
when it was all said and done, fear is not of God. I mean, it's an evil tactic. Fear is an evil tactic. I mean, you look at the world today and the evil we see today. I don't care if you're a Christian or not. There's a lot of evil in this world, man. I mean, there's some twisted minds. There's all kind of messed up shit. I mean, it's all messed up. And I think what happened was he saw it coming. And I don't, I get it. Okay. I mean, dad's said some stuff about what's coming at the end. I remember hearing, things that he would see about what's coming to America that I've actually seen come true. Um, but the message should have been, you have nothing to worry about. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like, you don't need to worry about this. Like, if you're living the right life and you believe in Jesus, you have nothing to worry about. It shouldn't have been this whole, but I think it became this control thing of thinking I can actually change the course in some capacity. It almost felt like that a little bit. Like
Yeah.
I can
True.
change the course of history a little bit.
Well, I know that if anything, when we all right, so there was one Sunday, it was called Moving the Framework. I'll never forget this. And he drew out on the whiteboard a essentially like two steel beams going across, and then there was a sliding frame on it. And our frame was over here, and we needed to be over here. And over here was the transition of how to dress the women. And that's when the dress came about. And this dress pattern was from a different church going back to the whole clapping thing. This is when the whole transition was taking place, that they wanted to copy this church because they liked them. They thought they were cool. That's really what it was, if you ask me. And so they dressed that way. They thought that was fabulous. His kids did. And so, hey, we should all dress like that. They literally got the pattern from these people. And within, a month, all women dressed the very same way.
Without being told too, right?
Right. Exactly. Just, that little snippet
Yep.
of freedom that you decided what you wore. I'm pretty sure even like bright colors were talked about, like, I mean, it was pretty painted out in black and white of how it would be. Those little small, well, that was pretty major, but just shifts like that. So then put yourself in someone else's shoes. They walk into this church.
Yeah.
They think they look nice for Sunday.
Yeah.
And to most people, we look like Amish, right? Exactly like Amish.
Yep.
And they're like, what the fuck? But going back to your point, was that like, if my group of people are so holy, if you would, and follow these scriptures to a T, are we going to be exempt from certain things? Because it was
I
mentioned.
think that I think that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was very cult like. You
Yep.
look at the cults over the years, and that's kind of the way they've always believed. The leader said, you had the one that followed the Haley's comet. Like this comet's coming. We got to all kill each other because if we live a certain way and we kill each other this time, we're going to go to heaven. Like, and it became that type of behavior because I remember and we're going to run out of time eventually. But
I know.
I remember when this started, it was all about grace. Like it was about grace. It was like, hey, grace, yeah, you are allowed to be yourself because God did the sacrifice for you. And he understands you're not perfect, and he understands that you're going to struggle because he lived it all. So he gives you grace in order for you to get to somewhere that you could not do by yourself, right? That was the message for like half my life, right? And then it changed, and it became about works, kind of like that kind of stuff. Like you got to dress this way, you got to act this way, you got to, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I got just confused. 'Cause I'm like, well, half my life I've been taught, you know, oh, you can go cut your grass on Sunday. There ain't nothing wrong with cutting your grass on Sunday. I mean, who cares? You're saying, like, you're good. You're good. You're financially, you'll be fine. He's going to take care of you. All this stuff. Live your life. You're able to be yourself. And then it became where it was conformity. And I look at conformity a lot like what the Jews treated Jesus around when he literally went into the temple, overturned all their tables because they were exchanging money for people to tithe, and talking about how much you got to do this and do that, and you can't do this and you can't do that, and told them basically to fuck off, literally, and said, y'all are wrong for this. Like, this goes against everything I stand for. And so what happened? You know what I mean? Like it went to a message that I don't even think is real. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it goes against everything that I was taught.
Yeah. I know. And like I saw that so much being young. How I think it's two things. You see how far you can take people, control, right? So, like, all right, you ready for the next phase or step? And oh wow, everyone's dressing well. Okay, that was successful. Like, what else will they
Yeah.
do? And then I remember at one point, because we scrutinize every little detail, down to how you dress, that if we knew other churches or Christians, a lot of times, like, yes, they were a Christian, but we were praying for them because they were still in the wrong. And I remember asking Dad, I said, Dad, so, because I'm pretty sure it mentions in the Bible that there's going to be a lot of people in heaven. I'm like, our church is like 92 people. Like, we have a lot of growing to do if we're going to like fill up heaven, if we think we're the only group. And I
It
remember he
very much.
laughed and just didn't say much on that one.
Well, well, no, you're right. It was judging people. It
Yeah,
was straight up judging people, basically saying, "Hey, I'm a better Christian than you." I
yeah,
mean, that is legit what I saw that so many times where, man, like they would literally look at other Christians and be like, "Oh, to your point, we're praying for them,"
yeah.
Uh, it's like, what? I mean, are you kidding me? Who made you God? Like, I
Right?
mean, who really made you God? And that's where it became an issue for me was around that, like the true judgment piece of it.
Mhm.
Like, who are you to say? Who are
Yeah,
you? Do you even know how I think? Do you even know what I comprehend? I've realized over the years that what I was taught, I I don't even know if I understood it. You know what I mean? Like I don't even know if I understood that. And like it was all and they would always talk about, well, it's your walk and it's your understanding, and everyone has different levels of understanding, but they would like try to force you into their understanding of it.
wow.
Well, I don't see it the same way you do, but that
Yeah.
don't mean I'm wrong. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it doesn't mean I'm wrong. So I think that for me was kind of the final straw. Like really, you're just not you're not going to tell me what to do. Like
Yeah.
the only person that can tell me what to do is God. And hey, if I screw up, That's on me. That is on me, and I'll take that responsibility because no one told me to do otherwise.
Right.
But it's not your position to force me to act and behave a certain way, especially dress a certain way, just because you want control.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting thing, and I, true to your point, I had no clue what was being told to me, especially, when all of those things were happening to you. I'm like way too young to comprehend anything. I just knew that like things were shifting, people were acting different. Like people did definitely seem not as happy, not as there was a lot more judgment happening and tattletelling and ratting people out and
Yeah,
all of that.
yeah, no
And
kidding.
but once you did leave, it definitely like I remember thinking like I got to figure out why, like and because you weren't the only one, you were with the group that went, and I'm like, why did those people go? What did they see that I didn't? Because then over here you have, well, that was the devil that made them do that. They're out of control. You got to pray for them. One day they're gonna come walking back and repent. And then me, I've always been so logical and like, nah, like there's more to it than that. And as soon as I started being able to comprehend things, that's when I was trying to connect the dots, and they never fucking connected. And
No, no.
that's when
Well,
that's when I started losing all type of patience to even try to conform.
if anything, the dots contradicted. I think that's
Uh,
kind of what happened to me is like I tried, to your point, tried to put the dots together and they literally contradicted themselves.
yeah,
I mean, everything that I had been taught growing up, I grew up in that church, I mean, just like you. And for a longer period of time, I saw what you saw as a kid of like happiness and independence, but everyone was there for the right reason. You know what I mean? Like they were there, genuinely there to better themselves and to become better Christians in their own way, right? And it was all genuine. It was all genuine to a certain point. And then the minute the fakeness crept in,
yeah,
I was out. You know what I mean? Like that was it for me. Like, I'm not going to sit here and argue with you over why I can't do this or why someone's dressing this way. Like, no, I'm good. Like, after you taught me for 15 years that I'm not supposed to do that, like, no, I'm good. I'm
yeah,
good.
yeah,
And that was it for me. And so that 100% was the straw that broke the back for me because um, it just it was no longer genuine. And the minute stuff stops becoming genuine, I'm good in life in general, even to this day. And I'm
right,
probably even more sensitive to fakeness. Me and my wife had a whole conversation about that earlier because of that.
yeah,
Because of that right here. And so, I mean, hey, look, I guess I took some good stuff away from it when it's all said and done. I can spot a fake one a mile away because of that right there. But yeah, I mean, you can't contradict yourself and tell me to listen to you.
no, you're right. Maybe next time we'll dig into a couple of families who pretty much left everything behind to join and got criticized more than anyone, because of who they were. Maybe we'll dig into that and just give people an idea of really how judgmental and bad it was for people who called themselves Christians and
Yeah. Especially
switching.
judging yeah, to your point, there were some families that put a lot into it and got just shit on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, hey, on that note, happy Easter, and I want everyone to know that this is not the normal. But hey, you're going to learn a lot about the abnormal on this one. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Well, happy Easter, bro.
happy
I'll see
Easter.
you next week.
Sounds good. See ya.
See ya.